What do you get called to assist with the most in regards to movement? What are things that you see kind of trends?
Well, you know, in my experience, it tends to be something different almost every time. I get some requests for some things that I never would have thought of that I would ever be asked to do. I haven't, aside from some things that I've done more than once, like creating zombie movement, I've done more than once for different projects. Aside from that, everything seems to be a little different. Sometimes it's for something for a robot. One of the more unusual things I was asked to do was for an Axe body spray commercial. They had a guy who was in a costume that made him look like he was made of chocolate. Oh. And the director said, I want him to move like he's made of chocolate, which of course, you know, was some non-existent thing that we had to create the idea of what that would look like. The Stan Winston studio had built this fantastic foam costume that made him look like he was chocolate. And the surprising thing about this, they ended up with the opposite effect that they expected. They expected the costume to be difficult to move, and it was fairly bulky. It had this big mask, and they ended up finding out it was easier for the actor to move in than they expected it to be. But the result of that was that he didn't move as much like someone made of chocolate as they hoped he would. The director was hoping, oh, we'll put him in this stiff costume and he'll move a little bit stiff and he'll look like he's made of chocolate. And that didn't happen. He was actually able to move quite easily. So my job then was to try and make him move more stiffly, to make it actually look like it was more difficult to move than it was. Which isn't usually the case, but sometimes it happens to go the other way. But that was something that, and we discovered that day on the set, once he had his mask on, that he had almost no peripheral vision. He couldn't see sideways, he couldn't see below him. So I actually had to, in some shots, I had to be just off camera, but close enough to him where he could hear me, and I had to give him verbal cues to let him know when he was about to step down off of something, or to when he needed to avoid something, because he literally had this kind of tunnel vision, and he needed that assistance. But that's something we didn't even know in our costume tests early on. We didn't know until we got to the set he was going to have that problem.
Wow. So it's interesting also, I think sometimes when a person thinks about movement, they tend to think about choreography and, you know, maybe a dancer and that sort of movement. What's the difference between a movement coach and, say, someone that's orchestrating choreography for a movie or a commercial or something?
Really what a movement coach does is character movement, which is, now that can be a lot of different things, but anything, sometimes if an actor has to do some kind of unusual movement because they're playing a non-human character or something very unusual about the person that someone wouldn't normally know how to do, that's one thing a movement coach might help the actor learn how to do. Sometimes it can be a realistic character, though, who just has some movement trait that this actor doesn't have. Maybe they're playing someone who's much older or much younger than they are, or who has a physical disability or something that the actor is not used to doing. Or even a great example would be if a character is playing a well-known person, a famous person, and has to mimic their movement habits so that they're recognizable. That's something a movement coach can help in analyzing what that character needs to do. And that's very different from dance choreography, obviously, but it's something not a lot of people realize that that's what a movement coach does. I guess the more I studied it, the more I realized just how fundamental a part of playing any type of role movement can be.